Well, at the moment, obviously, lots of businesses very concerned about the impending implications that coronavirus is going to have on their businesses. I think we've had an awful lot of members over the weekend contact me to ask what they should be doing to prepare around HR issues, cash flow issues, and clearly in terms of events, people are asking us whether they're going ahead, whether they're going to be cancelled, postponed or whatever. We're playing it by ear at the moment. We're obviously hoping that we can still host as many events as we possibly can, but we'll be dictated, like most businesses are at this moment in time, by government advice and WHO guidance. But clearly, businesses, it's a worrying time for them, and we're here to help and support. And if there is anything that we can do, either by signposting them to others who may be able to help, or indeed by directly advising them and helping them, please get in touch with Downtown and we'll do our very best for you. The sectors that have been immediately hit are hospitality and the visitor economy. I don't think that'll be of surprise to anybody. Ultimately, hotels, bars, restaurants are really struggling. One of our hotel members have informed me today that they've lost £2.2 million worth of business over the next quarter, and I'm sure that's being mirrored right across the country. So it's a real challenge, a real difficulty for that sector. Retailers, some of them are already having to close the doors, so that's a problem. And of course, car manufacturers are seeing their order book fall off a shelf. So it really is starting to affect businesses right across the board. But I would say at this moment in time, from the Downtown membership cohort, it's the hospitality sector that's really suffering at present. I was very complimentary about the budget that was announced last week, because I think certain measures that have been taken were welcome. So things around tax, around national insurance contributions, the fact that we're going to have bank lending relaxed in terms of businesses being able to access finance easily or easier than has been the case in the past. I think that all those things are positive. However, what I would say is that this crisis has probably taken a hold on businesses and wider society and the economy even more so than the government had anticipated 7 days ago. So hopefully, the government are monitoring the situation and we'll see additional support for businesses coming through, because I can see over the next 3 or 4 months an awful lot of companies who are in good shape, really, are going to be facing crises that nobody could have been predicting only a month or two ago. I think we operate in cities and city regions where we're very fortunate that in many of them we have devolved government, so we have combined authorities, and of course in every area we have a local enterprise partnership. So when you look at those measures that the government have introduced, particularly around access to finance for business, then I think we really do need to start to make representations now to government to say that those funds should be devolved to combined authorities and to local enterprise partnerships. The problem I have with the British Bank actually holding the purse strings, and banks generally and financial institutions generally holding the purse strings, is that there is a culture within those organisations and institutions of being risk averse and actually not necessarily knowing the businesses on the ground that are in need and deserving of support, where actually it's not a risk to give people a helping hand through this difficult situation and to help people with cash flow. So I want to see that money dispersed and devolved to local government, local combined authorities or local enterprise partnerships, in order that that cash that the government wants to get to businesses is targeted in the right way and businesses are actually benefiting from that package. What I don't want to see is banks building up their balance sheet, which I have to say is what happened with some of them in 2008, the last time the financial crisis hit. So more devolved powers for those things that the government have actually announced so far. And, again, I think locally we need to be getting messages out there as to what a freeze in business rates mean, what help perhaps that the local government and public sector agencies can give to business. Communication, I think, needs to be improved, and certainly in some cities that we're operating in, then Downtown has been asking the question that business organisations engage very quickly and more effectively with the powers that be, and I think that'll happen this week. I think inevitably we are already seeing some postponements of our events programme. So Chris Oglesby from Bruntwood has gone into self-isolation. So clearly, unless we do a webinar with Chris, that's not going to happen. That particular lunch that was taking place in Manchester later this month, we've had Jules Pipe at our London event have to pull out only this morning, and we've got other events coming up, not least the launch of the Liverpool Property Club later on in March, which I know has got a big question mark over it. The smaller events, I think the private dinners where people are coming together and perhaps there's only a small group of people, so we can monitor people's health a bit more effectively, and I think people are probably a bit more mindful of not going into a room if they're coughing and spluttering, if they're going to be eating some dinner. They will hopefully be able to continue. But what I will say is that once we come through this crisis, which will hopefully be a matter of weeks rather than months, all those events will be reorganised, rearranged, and we'll get things back to normal as we possibly can, as quickly as we possibly can. And the other thing I'll say is our communication channels are going to be open. So we're going to be doing lots of video interviews, getting lots of information out there, not only about the crisis, but about the opportunities that are still going to be around once we come through this. So it's as far as it can be business as usual for downtown over the next few weeks and months.